Welcome, David Todor. Todor. What's the right pronunciation, David? I'm always.
Yeah, it's Father David Todor. Yeah, you said it
All
correctly.
all right. Well, welcome to the conversation, Father David. And It's been a while since we talked. We bumped into each other. I want to say in September in Toronto. First time we met in person. And we've exchanged a couple of times back and forth online. I was on your podcast. I want to say it was last summer, like 22.
Yeah,
Was it
you
that
were
long
on the
ago?
podcast. Yeah, time flies, and I remember meeting you at the protest. I had such a good time, and I'm usually surprised by how people are in real life. Like I get to see their online personalities. Some people are, different heights, and that kind of always surprises me. But I think out of all the people, the way I pictured you is exactly how you look like in real life. And I just remember thinking about that. Like I pictured you that way, and you were probably one of the few people that look like that in real life. So
Huh.
I remember walking away with that.
Yeah. Well, I don't use any filters or anything like that on my social media profile. I, I come as I am.
You got
Uh,
beautiful skin complexion.
it's reflecting the lights here today. I've been sorting out the podcast studio and continuing to refine my efforts to communicate well. David, you're in Waterloo, and there's a lot that's been going on in Waterloo in the last year and a half, almost 2 years. And I think probably the first time your name came across I guess, my screen was following the Carolyn Brzezinski um, delegation to the board. That was last January, January of 22. This is well known. People understand this now. If you're watching the show, it's likely that you have not missed this. But Carolyn Brzezinski is a former teacher, and she was presenting to the Waterloo District School Board. And Scott Piatkowski shut her down partway through her delegation and said, I'm afraid you're going in a direction that's going to violate people's human rights. Were you a member of Lighthouse at that point?
No, I was not. Actually, I had pretty much no idea what's happening in the schools. And as far as I was aware, like everything was good. Now, we had a hard time with COVID as well. And that just brought some things to the surface. And I just started questioning the direction of the school. And I remember when Carolyn, when she got shut down, I just saw this Instagram post by the Waterloo District School Board saying that they removed the video because they didn't want to cause harm, etc. And I gotta say, I did not really know anything about Carolyn. I didn't see anything much from the school board, but because they took the video down and they made it sound like this individual was causing harm, I just had to look into it, and I saw that video and I was in disbelief about what happened. I was a couple things. Number one, the books that Carolyn was reading, I just couldn't believe that those books were in the library. And second of all, I couldn't believe that she was making a reasonable presentation and they kicked her out and then blamed her for causing harm. So that really got me looking into what kind of things is the school board promoting? What kind of books do they have in the library? Because the content that I saw over there, because it was so hard to believe, I had to see it with my own eyes. And I had to see where are these things being promoted, who's promoting, who's behind all of these things. And in my mind, a reasonable human being could not show this kind of material to kids, especially since Carolyn's presentation was focused towards elementary kids, grade
Mm-hmm.
1 to 6, and I just couldn't believe it, and because of that, I started looking more and more into it, and frustration built up more and more, and I ended up going to a meeting which Carolyn spoke. at. It was called Education at the Crossroads, and that's where I met a couple key people. One was Carolyn, and I spoke with her for the first time, and she was a great person. And then I also met Christina Fernandez, who I've also had on the podcast, and she's very involved in the Waterloo region. And Christina was at the back, and she had a she had a table with the books, and she just had like a bunch of books all in one place. And I just looked at everything and I just couldn't believe it. Right. Like everything was all in one place. And I saw the photos, I saw the content, and I took a picture of it, honestly, and I sent the picture to a few people. I felt bad even having those pictures of the books on my phone. It
Yeah,
felt wrong to have, you know, basically kids being involved in sexual acts on my phone. And anyways, I shared those books with other people, and that got me started on that journey. And uh, Carolyn's incident is a really big thing over here, and there's, she's in court for a couple different things. One is for being defamed, and the other one is for being shut down, and it's kind of like against human rights. So there's really interesting things happening on that end, and I believe that Carolyn's story um, and her incident is she's fighting for us as well to represent us in a legal way, because parents, teachers, and anybody that has any concerns needs to be able to speak up without being shut down at the school board.
indeed. Yeah, and um, you're a you're a dad, right? So I see you online, and you get attacked for being Catholic, but uh, you're not a Catholic uh, father. Um, and your spiritual practice aside, you're a dad, and you've got three children, from what I understand. What ages are they? Are
Yeah,
you
so I
okay to
have two
say?
children. They're two girls.
Ah,
Yeah, my kids are 8.5 is the youngest, and my oldest is 10. And the two girls, and yeah, I'm not a Catholic. I did grow up in a Christian household, and then I stopped going to church. And I remember um, I with the pandemic and everything just being upside down. Uh, it was pretty difficult. It was a difficult time, and I just remember thinking, especially with all this gender ideology nonsense, where men can be women, women can be men. I just remember thinking, these people, they're confused. These people need God. And then I said, well, maybe I should start going to church. And slowly, I started going to church, and I found out that at the Christian church, there's a lot of people who support my views as well. And it's very much pro family. There's a lot of things that are in our society. It's being promoted from top down. We're known for the MAID program and looking to extend that the self deletion to minors and people who are mentally sick. We're known for sterilizing minors and transitioning them. We're known for high divorce rates, and uh, our country is not known to be pro family. Our country is known to be pro destruction, and the government is handing out and enabling through the handout of drugs and gears for people to take drugs. And this is this is bad. This is enabling self-destruction. And when I started going to church, it was the opposite. It was very much family focused.
mhm.
You got to improve yourself, you got to work out any problems that you have, let go of the hate, let go of the anger, let go of the guilt, and just become a better person and overcome addictions, overcome struggles, and all of that. So I found that the church was really helping me with that. And the more I started going, the more I the more I liked going, and people really do support me from the church.
Mhm. And having kids, I mean, you've really got skin in the game here. Are your kids attending public school at this point, or have you taken them out?
Yeah, so my kids are attending public school, and the reason for that is I'm a single dad, and the kids are with me. And it's, I'm looking at private education as well, but I understand there's a lot of single parents out there. And I think the best way to protect the kids is to be involved into and to know what is happening. That's why I'm pretty
Hmm.
involved with the schools, and I keep an eye out on what they're learning as well. And I speak out against the schools, and I encourage all the parents to do the same. If they don't have the opportunities to take their kids out for either homeschooling or private education, they got to be involved and they got to protect their kids because nobody else is going to do it for them. And the role of the family, especially the role of fathers, is to protect the family, is to protect the kids, and to speak out when it's not right.
Yeah. You've spoken a few times at before the school board as a in Canada we call it a delegation. So you've gone and you've spoken before the boards. Has that experience? You've done it several times. Has it changed for you? And in terms of the response that you've been getting since you first did it to now, have you noticed a real a shift, or are we seeing a doubling down in the school boards?
Yeah, we're seeing both actually. There's definitely a shift, and people are beginning to become more aware. And the school board is being notified constantly, and the trustees are being emailed. And because of that, they are doubling down because they're seeing people speak out. And in order for them to stop the dissent, they're doubling down. And the way that they're doing it is they're essentially silencing people as well. So they close the comment section. Uh,
Right.
they 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 make things unavailable as well. They're not very transparent. They gaslight people into saying, "Oh, like we never said that. We didn't do that." A lot of the things, for example, is they'll say the books that we have in the library, they're approved by the uh, the Ontario government, which is not true because they have supplementary material. So they're really trying to shift the blame, and they're not being upfront with their involvement in this. That in fact they are handpicking these books, and the list that the government has, it's more educational books, but books usually fall in two categories: education and entertainment. And they're able to pick supplementary material that they think that the kids might enjoy. So the books that are in the library are not on the government list. I've checked that list. The books that are in the library with explicit content, those are handpicked books. So they'll try to basically lead people in the wrong direction. And the other thing that they're doing as well is they're always feeling the need to educate. They're feeling the need to educate the teachers on how they can dismiss the concerns of parents.
Right.
They're always feeling the need to educate on how parents on how they can minimize and dismiss all those concerns. Basically, oh, it's not that bad. Those books, you don't need to worry about it. Did you even read the entire book? So they got different methods of
Hmm.
dealing with this, and they have a problem when parents hear about a certain book. They have a problem when parents are reaching out. They might say something along the lines of, a parent was heard about this book on social media from a US uh,
Right.
media outlet, and now they're contacting the school, and we don't even have that book. And even the books that we do have, the parents are not really reading the entire book. And to that, I say, if the media in the US or any other country is exposing these books, that's a good thing. And it's a good thing for a parent to go to the school and inquire if that book is there or not. If the book is not there, great. If the book is there, why is it there? And the other thing that parents need to understand in regards to the books is uh, even if the books are there, you don't need to read the entire book, just like you don't need to watch an entire movie. If it has an explicit scene, it could be like Franklin the Turtle with a 10-second explicit scene. it could be okay to say that movie is not appropriate for children. So you don't need to see the entire context
Right.
to realize that something is inappropriate. All you got to know is that they hide adult content in children's books and it's not appropriate. I mean, it could be the most beautiful book ever, and then wham bam, you got a sex scene in the middle. It's no longer appropriate. It ruined the
Right.
entire book. It undermined it, and got to go. And that's the way the school board is handling the growing dissent. So they're tripling down on this because parents are speaking up, and we got like the Million March protest that happened as well. So it's both, and the reason why they're tripling down is because parents are getting more and more aggravated. So it's
Yeah.
causing like a cycle where, yeah, parents are just even more angry because they triple down, and then they
Yeah.
triple down more, which causes parents to be even more angry.
Yeah, similar patterns across the country. We recently looked at a video out of Victoria School District that was shared with us, and they basically said that um, if parents or people are talking or questioning these things, you shouldn't even talk to them because they're basically bigots and transphobes and causing harm, and it's a waste of time. And so they listed a number of strategies for dealing with parents in this regard. Yet they're the ones who claim that they're inclusive and engaging with the community and all these things. So it we saw in, I think it was Mission, BC, in the Fraser Valley, uh, just in the last couple of weeks, uh, where they were doing a Soji information session and parents were there and expressing concern. They turned up the music and they started dancing to drown out the parents. So it's this bizarre kind of clown world that's going on, and we're seeing. I mean, I wanted to talk to you specifically because you're in Waterloo and you're engaged with the efforts there, and we're seeing the same kinds of patterns across Canada with these school boards, and the WRDSB is particularly egregious in their behavior. What have been the Can you count any victories this year? Some milestones in your region that really stand out for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's been a ton of victories over here. And as a matter of fact, I got to say, like, the parents can't stop winning, you know? And I'll even go as far as to count every time the Waterloo District School Board leadership opens their mouth, it's a victory, you know, because I want to hear what they say. I want to put it up and I want everybody to know exactly how degenerate they are. It's a victory whenever they do that. So I did a delegation that went viral. This was the first time I spoke at the school board, and it got picked up by Fox News. And the school board ended up releasing this open letter, basically admitting to what they did. Right? They tried to spin it around on me. They tried to call me a bigot and being hateful, and then they brought attention to their procedures. And I looked at that letter and I was like, ladies and gentlemen, like, I'm glad they posted this information. Have a look at the procedures that they have. Look how they handle parents. They're literally, what did I tell you? What I told them is exactly what they ended up doing, and I think they shot themselves in the foot with that. And I encourage them. I want to hear everything they say. I will not interrupt them. And I think it's a win every time they open their mouth. Every time they double down, it's a win. So the fact that I was able to do delegations, I consider that a personal win. And the support surrounding it is a huge win. Then we had another big moment with the Million March protest, and I spoke over there as well. And we had a couple thousand people here, and that was a huge win. Um,
Hmm.
Big win over there. Parents are finally standing shoulder to shoulder, regardless of what they believe in terms of religion. They're coming out to protect their kids, right? And that's a huge win. We had little wins, with different delegations and stuff. And like I said, just you put the information out there, and then you just wait for them to react. And it's predictable now. They will always react in a poor way that I think is great. Like the more that they double down, the worse they look, and it's a win. And then we have Carolyn Berjowski's case, which brought so much attention, put so much attention on the school boards and what they're doing. That's a huge win, you know. And then I would say even other wins that people have been catching on was the Halton District School Board with their transgender teacher,
Right.
Lemieux. I forgot the name, Kayla Lemieux, Busty Lemieux. And to be honest, that's a win. I mean, parents look at that and they're absolutely disgusted. And now they're fired up. Now they show up at the school board. Every
Hmm.
time parents show up at the school board to hold them accountable, it's a huge win. And, when I listen to these people speak, there was a recent event, and there was a couple key individuals, these experts. It was called School Libraries and Curriculum Under Attack, Why and What to Do. And I covered this on my YouTube channel. And two individuals over there, Anita Brooks Kirkland, who's the chair of the Canadian School Libraries, and Tammy Lee, who's the president of British
Yeah.
Columbia Teachers Librarians Association. These people are considered the experts, and they're openly talking about how these books should be accepted. But then they also mention that the new teachers and the new librarians, they're hesitant to put these books in. And from their perspective, they think that they're losing, right? They're like, oh, we should be posting if we think it's good, right? But that's a win because it's good that they're thinking twice about it because, you know, teachers are even good teachers, the teachers have started to gain a bad reputation for grooming kids, for driving a wedge between parents and kids, and they're acting like therapists, and kids are being socially transitioned at school. If you're a good teacher and you don't like it, you should speak up. You got to push these bad teachers out, and that's a win. Another win, I've noticed that there haven't been that many pride flags around, and people really started to distance themselves from all the
Interesting.
pride flags, right? Yeah, so the pride flags have been going down. They used to be up everywhere, and all the shops used to have like we're all inclusive, and but now the pride flags are down. And I gotta say, like, I'm very conscious. If I see a place with a pride trans flag on, like I'm not gonna support their business. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of people have been doing that, and that's a huge win. And just to recap, the amount of wins that have happened this year, the amount of awareness that came out of it, the fact that I have a podcast is a huge win. The fact that you have a podcast is a huge win. Billboard Chris, for example, is exploding as well on social media. Politicians are taking notice as well.
Hmm.
It's a huge win. And it's only going to get better and better because people are starting to catch on and the tide is turning.
Yeah, I get that sense too, and I'm glad you mentioned Chris. Chris's legal name is Chris Elston. For those who want to make the connection, and I was sort of I was public before I met him for a couple of months, and I was testing the waters with friends, family, and on my social media. But we met in I want to say it was the 20th, 21st of October in 2021. He came to Ottawa. I had joined a couple groups at that point. Um, and, you know, I liken the groups that are forming and have formed in the last couple of years to secret societies. And in times of, kind of oppression, where people can't talk and the trust that binds our society starts to break down and people get pitted against each other, which is kind of what's happening in times of social stress. Groups form based on trust. And so I was a member at that point of at least one of these trust networks. And someone said, I was saying, okay, I'm going public. And I have, 1,600 business connections locally on my LinkedIn. And I'm going to, start with LinkedIn because I've seen Twitter, I've seen Facebook. And this person said to me, well, like that's a big risk. Maybe you should think about it. But while we're talking, billboard, Chris is in town, and maybe you guys should connect. So I reached out to Chris, and that was the day that I met Chanel Fall, who was still under the radar at that point. She didn't go public for another couple of months after that event, but we were mobbed by about 300 people, thanks to the school board here in Ottawa, who sent a letter to every household of children. But the things that Chris said resonate with your kind of listing of all the victories. I'm glad when the school board opens their mouth, because that's a victory for us. It shows everyone who they are and how they operate, and that's exactly what Chris Elston said in the first 5 minutes of our first meeting. We were about to take the signs and go and stand on a public street corner, kitty corner across from a school. And he said, you just have to stand there and they will show you who they are. And that has been the experience, I think, for a lot of people. In how you describe things when these boards and these institutions start to, they're grotesque, and grotesque in the sense of, like misshapen and poorly formed and ugly and hideous in the way that they act, and then people start to see it, and awareness spreads. A counter to that, or the other side of the coin, is that when talking to most people, and I don't know if this is your experience, the reception is actually very, very good. Contrary to what the school boards would have people believe, that these are just a few people, and we're going to shut them down. It is most people who share these kinds of concerns, especially when they're presented with evidence. What was your kind of, I don't want to call it a psychological journey, but what was it like when you went from kind of being a private person to publicly speaking? What were some of the questions you asked yourself? I'm curious about how you made that transition.
Yeah, so actually, for me, it wasn't that difficult. I mean, the first question in the delegation that went viral, my question really was, who's interested in knowing my daughter's sexuality? Because they were surveying my kids, they were surveying all the kids, but I got concerned, like, why are they fixated on their sexuality? Why is the school board fixated on chatting and discussing their preferred sexual behaviors, their kids? And their surveys, they put out one part of information, but then it was completely different. What they would do, for example, on the survey, it would say like grade 4 and up, and then on the actual survey itself, it was age 4 and up, and age
Good
4 and
Lord.
up and sexuality. I mean, yeah, like it's just pure degeneracy. So for me, when I started speaking over there, like I'm a dad, and like I'm the authority over there. I want to know what's going on and who's interested in my daughter's sexuality. And I think a lot of people, when they heard me speak, they were probably thinking, yeah, who is interested in the sexuality of minors? That's a really good question, because the school board is very interested and members of the school board are extremely interested. And, that's just the way I think. I go there, I'm the authority, I'm there to hold these people accountable, and they got to be held accountable for the decisions that they make. And the reception has been from parents, it's been nonstop winning. And I wish I could tell you like a story of somebody coming up and doing something or whatever, but it's not. It's only been a positive experience. And, even when I show up at the school board, you look at these people, they don't even make eye contact when you're speaking. They all look down. It's
Yeah.
shameful. It's embarrassing. If I was in their position, I'd be hiding under a rock. And I know a lot of these people, they have families and they have religious backgrounds, and they can't possibly believe what they're saying, but they're spineless and they're cowards, and they won't look you in the eye, and they put their
Mm-hmm.
head down, and then they just repeat the same line because they can't think for themselves. And they just
Yeah.
push. nonsense. I mean, can you imagine being one of these leaders that's pushing this stuff and then going home to your family and explaining, let's say to your wife, it's like, well, I just voted to keep explicit content in the libraries, and the wife is like, what? Are you kidding me? Like this stuff is inappropriate. Like I'm sure these people they are aware of the books that are there. These books are not empowering. These books are not therapy books. It's just pure degeneracy. And if I was in their position, I'd be ashamed. I would resign, to be honest. I would not want to be part of this. And they I think the most respectful thing is for them to resign. But I think because they've been doubling down on these books as well and doubling down, like our school board this Monday, they just voted against parental rights. So a couple weeks ago, they voted to keep explicit content available to minors age 4 and plus, and now they voted against parental rights. When I see them behave this way, these people ought to be dragged out and they ought to be jailed for the kind of things that they're exposing the kids to. They're abusing the minds of kids. They're putting the kids
Yeah.
down a path of social transition. I mean, the psychological part of it is like, if this doesn't light a fire under my ass or under anybody's ass, I don't know what will. This is not a debate. It's not a debate with these people. I'm not trying to like. This is not sympathy. This is straight up abuse and manipulation. And the kids are kids, and they don't have the power to speak. And we, as adults, and as fathers and as mothers, we need to stand up for the kids. It's not a debate. The parent is the authority. You go in there and you got to tell them what to do. You got to expose them. And then I listen very carefully when they speak. And then I just repost them. It's like, look at these guys. And they cannot stop embarrassing themselves. I really believe they like to be humiliated, and they believe they want to be a victim. So I'll give them something to be victimized about. I will humiliate them with their own words. It's unacceptable. And they say things like, oh, so hateful and not tolerant. And it's like, what do they expect? Do they expect a pat on the back for this stuff? I can't tolerate this kind of behavior around minors. I hate that kind of behavior. You don't abuse kids and expect a pat on the back and say, like, oh, look how tolerant you are. What kind of inclusivity are we talking about here? Who are we including when we're talking about having sexual discussions about preferred sexual behaviors with minors? What kind of inclusivity is this? And I I really believe these people, they need to be locked up for doing what they're doing. And I'm in
Yeah.
disbelief that this did not happen, and we live in an age where kids are essentially being told and encouraged with sexual behaviors and discussions, and they have written policies and procedures saying don't talk to the parents. It's crazy.
Yeah. It is crazy. So I want to circle back. You said recently they voted against parents' rights. Can you give us some insights into that? What exactly did they vote against, and how did that unfold?
Well, they basically always vote against doing the right thing. So this is not the first time. We have a couple really good trustees, three really good trustees, namely one Cindy Watson that brought forward a motion for the school to respect parents' rights and for parents to be involved. And the school always talks about, like it's important to have parents involved in the communication. But when it comes down to it, they don't actually care about that. They
Right.
don't actually want the opinion of the parents. I don't think they're representing parents because, as you pointed out, and as my experience is, parents are not happy to have their children indoctrinated or to have their conversations about sexual behaviors with children. They're not happy about that, so they're not representing parents, and they just vote against it because their justification is, well, kids have right as well, and it's in a perverse way. They think that it's empowering to kids when kids come out and talk about their preferred sexuality, or when a teacher can affirm a child or relate to a child about their sexuality. I mean, it's honestly, I wish I had another word, but it's just degenerate. And
Yeah.
the trustees, as predicted, 8-3, because we have three really good trustees, Cindy Watson, Bill Cody, and Mike Ramsey. Them three, they voted in favor of parental rights, and then the other eight, they just voted against it. And it's not surprised. They don't vote based on moral convictions or religious convictions or anything. They overlook all that and they just vote the party line.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of evidence too about how the school board is Marxist, and the higher you are up in the ranks as well, the more you have to pretend. It's sad, but really they're enslaved in this because they can't even be their true selves. They just have to be robotic and do the deed of somebody else.
Yeah. My co-host Melanie Bennett brings a real academic analysis to some of the questions you're talking about. And I'm going to paraphrase her and refer viewers to some of the work that she's done on our channel about this. Basically, the progressive slash Marxist worldview on this is that children are sexual beings from the time they're born, and that the kind of let's call it the religious or conservative view of protecting children from sexual content and exposure to uh, sexualized content, thinking about sex, etc., is oppressive, and so that this is liberating for children to be able to have the public education system bring forward and bring out these conversations about sex and sexuality, sexual interests with children. It is bizarre. It has, however, strong academic roots in the postmodernist, theories. So Michel Foucault is often cited around this as he advocated for abolishing the age of consent laws down to birth. And there's a number of other thinkers and widely cited and read in these progressive circles, academics who push these ideas, and they've entrenched themselves in our institutions. Um, it, it kind of blows my mind, where we're at. How do you how do you make sure? How do you protect your girls from this? What's happening in schools, and how do you engage with their teachers at the school level?
Well, I think I have a little bit of a reputation, and this is why I encourage parents to get involved. To be honest, I think a lot of people want to avoid conflict, and
Mm-hmm.
and just by being involved, they'll make sure, like, if they do something, like, I'm gonna make us think about it, right? And I don't think people want, they just want to go there and do their job and go home. That's why I encourage parents, and this is how to handle the situation. And a lot of people are very good to that. And you've also mentioned that these academics are entrenched. Honestly, I think that's a good thing. They are so entrenched in their positions that they will literally stay there as you just slap them against their degenerate thinking into oblivion because they can't move. And you just sit there and you just spit facts, and they're so entrenched, they got to take it. And then they're
Yeah.
just going to repeat something, and they love to be humiliated. And this is the problem. Like, I can't figure out if these people are so open-minded on this subject that their brains fell out, or if they're so closed-minded on this subject that they
Yeah.
don't even know what to think, right? Like, obviously their mode of thinking, they've justified consent to bring it down to, and what does that mean, right? They've justified it in an academic way, which really is, it's going to lead to normalizing sexual relationships with kids, right? And adults don't need to be, and their adults are being vilified and all of that. And you need to be educated because you, as the parent, are the problem in all of this. And they're teaching the educators on how to educate parents on dismissing their concerns. I mean, Yeah, I've said it before and I've said it again. We have academics, and it just goes to show that just because you have school and just because you have 40 years of education and experience, it doesn't make you right. It means you were wrong for 40 years and that your education is complete garbage. And now you've become an academic. And I believe that you gotta basically achieve superior intellectualism to be able to justify such degenerate behavior. I don't think a normal person off the street, who doesn't have school, like 20 years of school or whatever, PhDs, I don't think they can come up with such sophisticated reasons to be a degenerate. But these people, I
It's
don't know what
true.
else to say. Like they absolutely come up with every single excuse to normalize sexual behaviors and discussions with children. And that's the end of that. And it's unfortunate that they're so closed minded or open minded. I don't even know how to think about it, because at the end of the day, they're not thinking, that they don't even realize the damage that they're doing to kids, right? And you put the kids down a path of transition, puts them down a path of medical sterilization, medical mutilation, and they think that this is okay. I can tell you, I went to Romania to visit my family, and they're in disbelief about what's happening. The world, everybody sees what Canada is doing to the kids. Everybody sees it. Canada is in an illusion, thinking that they're empowering the kids, and everybody sees these people are predators, and that's exactly what they are. These people, I honestly, anybody that exploits children, anybody that wants to have relationship with minors, anybody that wants to have these sexual conversations with minors, anybody that wants to go behind the parents' back and talk anything sexual and push minors down an empowerment road of sexual gratification and liberation, etc. I believe there's a safe space for these people, and they should be able to have a safe space. I believe in safe spaces, but I'm more of a traditional person, and that safe space has been perfected, and it's called a jail cell. That's where
Mm.
these people belong. They belong in their safe space jail cell if they wish to exploit children in sexual ways, um, and push them down a path of medical sterilization before they have a chance to start a family with lifelong psychological and physical ramifications.
Yeah. It's still mind boggling. A lot of people, it's really shocking, uh, to have conversations about pedophilia and adult predators, sexual predators, and engaging children in sexual discussions and content. I think we've become normalized to it. You and I and others who are working in this field is like it's never ceases to be shocking. Uh, I had a thought that passed through my head there, David, and uh, it escaped my grasp. What's next? What's coming in 2024?
Yeah, we got a lot of great things coming up. Honestly, just keeping up the pressure for the school boards. Like I mentioned, all this stuff that's coming out, like even the fact that you have a podcast, that I have a podcast, I'm just working right now to take it to the next level as well. I've been growing my subscription count as well. The members that are able to view, I'm making an impact at the school. Parents are coming out. So honestly, more of the same thing, just amp it up. The more people that are aware and the more avenues we have to provide information to parents, the better. One of the things that's coming for 2024, that's actually already here, we're just growing it. We have a Substack called Empower, uh, which is a grassroots project with parents of Waterloo region, and people get to write uh, little letters. I mean, you have a Substack as well that you've been part of as well,
Yep.
and just that's a win. just keep growing what we have, keep growing the membership, keep growing the awareness, put pressure on people, whether it's from a legality standpoint, or putting pressure on with premiers and people who are elected. Like, nobody's going to get my vote if they're going to behave this way. And I think if people make that clear, that the politicians will have to change course. So coming up
Hmm.
this year, I think I'm really excited. I look back on the past couple years, even on this year, how far I basically came from nothing. And now, we're able to have a conversation. We all have our podcasts. We have a following as well. I can't wait to see what 2024 brings. And I really encourage parents, like, be part of your child's life. A big encouragement that I want to give to parents is this upcoming year, just make an effort to be present. Take your kids off the screens and just spend time with your kids. That in itself, you as a parent, that's the biggest impact. Any parents listening to this, I just want to encourage you. The best way to affect your child's life is just simply spend time with them. Get off the screen. If you're not spending time with them, somebody else is going to spend time with them. Then you've only got yourself to blame. If somebody else is filling their head with things and you're not putting in an effort. And that's the approach that I have with my girls. I don't have a TV, but I do a lot of outdoor activities with them, whether it's in the summer or the winter, camping. There's a bunch of free things in the winter: sledding, swimming, skating, walking around and seeing Christmas lights, etc. There's a million things you can do. And the same thing for summer. That's for 2024. If people want a goal, is spend time with your family. And that's something else that's coming as well. I mean, that's already here, but I just plan to do more of it. I just continue doing it, actually, because I already do quite a bit of that. Just continue doing more, just make connections as well, and raise awareness and just take action. There's lots of things to do when it comes to taking action. So I have my podcast episode. It's called Beyond the Rift. My channel, I'm on all the social medias as well. And if anybody is interested in learning what's happening, whether it's in the Waterloo District School Board, and this information is also relevant across Ontario and Canada, I highly encourage you to have a look, and then you can see for yourself, because I'm trying to distill the information. And something else that's coming that I'm working on, a side project, is just to start uh, a school, an elementary school, just working towards that. And I don't even like calling it alternative education. The public school right now, I wouldn't even call it education. I want to start a school to educate kids and to just focus on the academics. What we have right now is not education. What we have right now is indoctrination. And the reasons why kids are struggling is because they're not paying attention to the actual curriculum. They say they're following the
Yeah.
curriculum, but they just go off track. And if anybody wants to learn more about it, I highly recommend a book called The Marxification of Education by Dr. James Lindsay, who's a Canadian. And he talks about, how math problems, they seem so innocent, but then they do the problem. It could be like a family is going on a trip in a van to an amusement park. You've gone this many kilometers. How many kilometers do you have left? Then they take a problem like that, and instead of solving the problem, they talk about it, and they say, how many of you have families? How many have been
Right.
to an amusement park? How many of you do you think it's a good idea to drive all that distance? And suddenly math is not math anymore. Suddenly, math is a struggle session about families and people who can afford to go to amusement parks, and carbon footprint and your impact on the environment. And it just branches out. And that's why kids don't know how to do math. It's not that they don't have the curriculum, is that they don't even follow the curriculum. I wish I could give the school board the benefit of the doubt that they follow the curriculum. As far as I'm concerned, even with the sex ed curriculum, if it's like biological stuff, like, they don't even do that. They spend time just talking about gender politics, right? and
Yeah.
they have
Yeah.
the audacity to say we have a curriculum. Well, follow it. At the very minimum, follow it. But they're not doing that. So that's what's coming for 2024. Lots of good things, only good things. The winning cannot stop coming. I'm really excited for everything. It's going to be a good year. It's been a great year.
Now we got a couple years to go before the next round of school board elections. Will you give thought to running for trustee?
You know, I've been told to run for a trustee. All I can say at this point is I don't really feel a calling for that.
Fair.
I
Yeah.
think I'm in the position that I'm in, I'm able to speak my mind. And I think if I was a trustee, I'd be a lot more kind of locked into speaking my mind and what I can or cannot say. Maybe that's not true at all. Maybe we just see a lot of trustees just being afraid for no reason. But at this moment, I don't really feel a strong attraction, and we have great people who do feel a strong attraction to that. We'll see what comes up. Like you said, like we have another couple years to get there. In the meantime, there's a lot of work to do ahead of time, and I'm gonna have to cross that bridge when it comes. But yeah, I'm not thinking out that far. You know, people just need to be aware how important it is to go out and vote somebody that's gonna represent your views.
Yeah. Well, thank you for all that you do, David. And it's been really great to hear about what's happening in Waterloo and with your projects. And I love the streak of winning that we're on. We have made tremendous strides in the last couple of years in terms of public discourse, and standing up and speaking the truth, and and holding in that firmly is what gets us out of this kind of authoritarian mess. These people, these academics, they've created a pie in the sky model of the world that doesn't match reality, and they're trying to impose it from a top down perspective. And it's people like you that are really who are standing up, that are really making a difference. And so, a very Merry Christmas to you and your girls, and I hope you have a terrific New Year's. And we look forward to hearing more about your exploits in 2024, David.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and wishing you a Merry Christmas, and all the viewers and the listeners as well. Thanks for having me on your podcast, Shannon. It's been a pleasure.
Glad to talk. Take care, David.
If you liked this video, please consider liking and subscribing, or check out one of our other videos. Here's a couple of suggestions.